right, the infamous Proverbs 31. We have reached the end, ladies and gentlemen. If you've watched the previous 30 videos, or if you've read, the previous 30 Proverbs up to this point, or even if you've read Proverbs 31, congratulations, hats off to you. Proverbs is an amazing book, and it deserves, lots of time. I know that we read Proverbs and we come to these short little one-liner, two-liner things, but there's a lot there. There's really a lot there, a lot to unpack, a lot of wisdom, a lot of guidance, and it's still super, super relevant even in the 21st century. If you're watching this in the future, it's still relevant even in the 22nd century. If you're watching this beyond, it's still relevant. So, but yeah, all that to say that, as much as the ancient Israelites, needed to study Proverbs, so do we. Whether you live in the modern Western world like myself, or if you live elsewhere in the world, Proverbs is very, very valuable to our daily lives. So I recommend you read Proverbs really on the regular. Really, we should be reading this on the regular, and just get familiar with these. Okay, that being said, let's just jump right in. Proverbs 31. So similar to Proverbs 30, Proverbs 31 is not attributed to Solomon. So like Proverbs 30, it was attributed to Agur. 31 is attributed to King Lemuel. Now your translations may say King Lemuel, like of Massa, or you may have a footnote saying he was the king of Massa. Of course, we talked about Massa in the last video in Proverbs 30. What do we know about King Lemuel? Not much really. What we do know is apparently he was a king. Apparently he was the king of Massa, and that what he tells us here, this wisdom he gives us, this was actually an oracle that his mother had taught him. So, which is kind of cool, because if you think back to Proverbs chapter 1 through 9, you've got those father-son discourses where the father is trying to impart to his son, hey, listen to my words, value my words, live out these words, and then make sure you pass these on to the next generation. That's what King Lemuel's doing here right now. He had this, his mother had imparted this wisdom to him, this oracle down to him, and then he put pen to paper, or pen to scroll, and recorded it. And then here we are, all these years later, still reading this wisdom that came from Lemuel's mom, who knows where it came from before that. So it's pretty cool. Lemuel is kind of, he's living out the command of Proverbs. So it's kind of a fitting way to close out the book of Proverbs. And then Proverbs 31 is really kind of broken up into two sections. You've got verses 1 through 9, and then you've got verses 10 through 31. And verses 10 through 31, this is an acrostic, which basically means that in ancient Hebrew, we have it broken up into verses. So each verse starts with a different letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So verse 10 would be an aleph, verse 11 would start with a bet, all the way down to the end of the Hebrew alphabet. So yeah, let's take a look. So really verses 10 through 31, this is where most people are familiar with Proverbs 31. Of course, this is talking about the noble woman. And so let's just take a look at a few of these things. Verse 13, she seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. So this Proverbs woman, this virtuous woman, she works with her hands, and she willingly works with her hands. She's not afraid to roll up her sleeves and get her hands dirty. We move on to verse 15. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. So she's getting up before the sun rises, and she's preparing food for her household, so for her husband, for her children, and also for the maidens. So here, she's a hard worker. She doesn't shy away from work whatsoever. Well, again, she dives right in. She really sets the standard. She really models kind of what this virtuous woman is. Let's look at verse 16. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hand, she plants a vineyard. So, the Proverbs, the noble woman. I wanted to call her Lady Wisdom because there's a lot of similarities here, right? Because if you think up to this point, especially in those father-son discourses, the father is constantly warning his son, watch out for this, for Lady Folly, we ended up calling her. Watch out for Lady Folly. Folly, she was she was kind of the seductress. She was the one who was, her words were smooth as honey. And she was a temptation, trying to lure these young men into this, the house of temptation because her husband was away. All of that warning against that woman, and then you kind of like wrap this up with, again, this noble woman here. And so jumping back to 16, she's an entrepreneur. So, verse 16 says, she considers a field and she buys it. She's walking by and she sees this field. Oh, she sees the field of the lazy person, and it's all grown up, but she sees potential there. And I'm just kind of made that connection there. But she sees this field, she sees an opportunity, and she plants a vineyard there. She sees this barren wasteland, and she's like, I can use this. I can turn this into something. And that's got a lot of ramifications. That's going all the way back to the Garden of Eden. And it's not time for that. But yeah, so she's business savvy. She's an entrepreneur, this Proverbs woman. Let's look at another verse. Let's look at 20. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. So she's giving. She's compassionate. She's caring. She puts others' needs before her own, which I think has been obvious up to this point so far. 21. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. So she's not afraid of snow. Like if the snow comes, and depending on where you live, you might be like, well, yeah, so what, snow. But think ancient Israel. They call it Palestine. Referring to the region. Back in this time. But she's not afraid, if the snow comes, because her family, they have what they need. Her family, they have snow boots and thick pants, snow pants, and coats and mittens and scarves and hats. Like they have all these things because they are prepared. Because this noble woman, this Proverbs woman, she makes sure that her household has what it needs. She knows for sure that her children have what they need. And not only that, it's probably all the right size too. So it's not like, well, squeeze into your snow boots from last year. No, that's not the style of the Proverbs woman. She's prepared. She takes inventory. She knows what she has. She's on top of everything. She's very smart and she's very keen. Let's look at another one here. Let's look at 26. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. So this Proverbs woman, when she opens her mouth, when she talks, she speaks with wisdom. And the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. So kindness is on her tongue. So are you going to find the Proverbs woman slandering other people? Nah, not at all. Are you going to find her gossiping about other people? No, not at all. Are you going to find her on Facebook or on Twitter, blasting somebody or criticizing somebody? No, not at all. She's probably not on these platforms whatsoever, truth be told. No, she speaks with wisdom, and she speaks with kindness. That's her MO. And again, she's living out everything we've read up to this point. She's living this out day in and day out. Let's look at another. Let's look at 28. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. I mean, the children rise her up, call her blessed, and the husband, praising her. It's because of who she is. Like the children, they're proud of her. The husband's, proud of her. It said earlier on that, her husband doesn't have to worry about her. Because again, she's not a liability. She's not the dripping sink that Proverbs has previously talked about. The quarrelsome wife. That's not who she is. No, she takes care of business. She gets it done. And that's just who she is. 29 says, many women have done it excellently. A lot of women before you, they've done a good job. They've done a good job. But this is, but you surpass them all. So all these other women, they do a good job. They do a good job. Leroy's wife, she's a pretty good woman, but she's not you. She's not you. So that's that's the Proverbs. That's the Proverbs woman. Let's look at verse 30 here. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. And that right there is at the very core. That right there is the very essence of who this Proverbs woman is. She is a woman who fears the Lord, and she is to be praised by that. Remember Proverbs 1:9, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And that is the very anchor when it comes to wisdom. That's what we have to understand. It all starts with the fear of the Lord. And remember, that's a reverence for the Lord. It's a respect. It's a love. And so again, that's what is that's the kind of the trigger point for everything that the Proverbs woman comes to embody. It all goes back to that she has a fear and a reverence and a love for the Lord. There's a lot to be learned from the Proverbs 31 woman. There's a lot to be learned from the book of Proverbs in general. Again, this is a book that we can kind of quickly run through it, but it really deserves our time, and it deserves our attention, and it deserves us just sitting down, brewing up a nice warm cup of tea, and just taking our time to really go through each one of these Proverbs and really just kind of reflect on what the true message is. Certainly considering the context that it was originally written in, and then applying that to the modern day, to our lives today. So much to be learned, so much goodness within Proverbs. So I hope you've enjoyed these videos. I hope you've enjoyed Proverbs, and yeah, let's do it again sometime. So thank you, and we'll see you in the next video.